I'm recording it. Cool. Is everyone being assigned co-host?
Rachel, have you set the auto mute?
Yeah.
Auto mute.
I
think I gave Christina the host role, so I can't do it.
I gave it back to you.
Oh, you gave it back to me?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh my god.
Wait, can we talk about how this was a Berkeley Zoom?
Well, yeah. I hail from Berkeley. So.
I hate to see it. Yeah, I was like, is this right? Like, did I go on the right thing?
Yeah, for the Berkeley event, Harley sent his, so it was a Yale Zoom, so it's all just like, you know,
we should have used my link for this one.
Yeah.
Oh, that would have been too blasphemous. All the panelists would vote. We're just like, strike.
All of you guys have co-host roles, so you guys can unmute yourselves easily. I hope so.
Could I be made co-host?
Yes. Let me find you. Okay. Gosh, so many humans. You're Eric, right? I saw Eric.
Yes.
But I feel like I don't. Wait, type. Let me co-host. Cool. Anyone else? Co-host. You should be co-host. Currently, people are over playing poker, so I'm playing poker today. I feel like I almost got all you guys. Let's see. Okay, who would like to claim like the host in case like some settings need to be changed during the call? Something. Anyone like?
I'm a hoe for power. I will take it.
Yeah. Okay. Amazing. I just need to make sure that it's still recording while. Okay.
Yes. All right.
Okay.
I'm muted. Welcome to my TED Talk. So today. Okay.
Did any of you guys know each other before all of this? Or
I know Aaron and Christine. They're my boys.
Yeah, I know Eric.
Nice. I know Christine.
And Sienna.
Here.
Cool.
Thank you, Eric.
Gabby. Okay, Gabby's a co-host. Cool. Robert. Okay, I think we're good to go. So y'all can start whenever. You guys can wait a bit for the participants to come, and then at like 8:40, I'll ping the chat to be like, oh, make sure to wrap up and move on. And yeah, you're good. Super chill. Just have fun.
Awesome. Yo, Aaron, so you want to wait till 2 more minutes or something like that?
Yeah, we can give it to like 8:03 maybe.
Okay, 03. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Aaron, how have you been?
Rolling down.
Pretty good. How about you? Have you started X50?
Well, wait. So last week I did both part 1 and part 2.
Oh
and
wow.
I thought that they were both due. Because I was
I
wondering. I was like,
That's
how?
good though. Now you have both done.
I mean, I guess. But yeah, no, it's better this time. But bro, I was just stressing last week for sure. I feel like I haven't seen you in such a long time, bro.
I haven't seen everyone in such a long time.
Wait, where are you from again?
Vegas.
Vegas? Fun, bro.
should like join Chinese 123.
Wait,
I see everybody like every day.
if you send me the Zoom link, I will go.
Say less.
Wait, actually,
Tomorrow's our last class, but I'll totally send you.
what time is it?
It's the one I go to is at noon,
At noon?
Eastern time. So
I got another class at the same time, but yeah, give it to me. No, I'll be there. But I can only stay for like 5 minutes because then I'll have to go to my other class.
Are you
Cool,
gonna
cool.
stop flirting anytime soon, or are you just gonna?
Okay, it's 8:03. We can go
Aaron,
ahead
you
and
ready?
get started. Yeah.
All right. So everyone's ready? So, all right. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Welcome to the Harvard CollegeSide Chat panel discussion. So first and foremost, we hope that you're all healthy and well. This horrible virus is affecting our communities across the world, and we empathize with you all as we try to navigate this already anxious, uncertain situation, especially the transition to college during a pandemic.
Yeah, we hope this fireside chat can provide you guys with a glimpse into what life is like at Harvard and give you guys an opportunity to hear about our panelists' stories and experiences at the college. This discussion is set to be about an hour long. The first half is going to be the panel answering some questions you guys previously submitted, and the second half is going to be an open discussion with you all.
Okay. Now, we encourage you all to turn on your cameras so our panelists can see who they're talking to. However, only do so if you consent to being recorded, because currently you guys are all being recorded. And also mute your microphones if you are not going to be speaking, except the panelists. Now, we will be uploading this recording on YouTube for other students to watch and for you all to refer back to. Awesome. So without further ado, we're going to kick off with introductions. So let's each have each of the panelists introduce themselves. So it's going to be a mouthful. So introduce your name, your pronouns, your hometowns, years, majors, and the first thing that they're going to do when quarantine is over.
All right.
We'll start off with Gabby.
Hi, everyone. My name is Gabby. I'm a junior in Winthrop House, concentrating in human developmental and regenerative biology, which basically just means stem cell biology. I'm from Palo Alto, California, and the first thing I'm going to do post-quarantine is go to the beach with friends.
Awesome.
Hello.
Chloe?
Yeah, hi. I'm Chloe. I take she, her, hers. I'm a sophomore, also in Winthrop House Best House. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I'm pursuing a joint concentration in English and music, so that's sort of like a double major. What else am I supposed to say? Oh, after quarantine, I am going to go outside because in New York, like, it's so densely populated that you really just don't go outside because it's dangerous. So I'm excited for air.
Awesome.
Hi guys. My name's Christine. I take the She series. I'm from East Brunswick, New Jersey. I'm a freshman, so class of 2023. I'm a prospective concentrator in neuroscience. And the first thing I'm going to do when quarantine's over is also go to the beach. I really miss the Jersey Shore, so I'm going to be heading straight over there.
So I am Christina. I take the She series. I'm from Los Angeles, California, and I am a mathematics major with a minor in educational studies. Let's see. Oh, I'm a junior in Winthrop. Yes, that is also a thing. And the first thing I'm going to do, I love grocery shopping, so I'm going to go grocery shopping, but I'm going to do it really slowly, and I'm going to like enjoy and touch everything. Yeah.
All right, Eric?
Yeah, hi. So I'm Eric. I'm a first year. I take he, him, his. I'm in Canada. I'm going to Kirkland in the fall. I'm majoring in CS and econ, specifically looking at how to incorporate technology and international development. The first thing I'm going to do when I'm out of quarantine is get food. There's this really great $4 hot dog place that's only open on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights, and that's the first place I'm going.
Hi everyone, I'm Sienna. I'm a sophomore. I take the She series. I'm originally from California, but I currently live on the island of Oahu in Hawaii with my family. So quarantining here is pretty fun, although we can't go to the beach, which is really sad. I'm concentrating in women, gender, and sexuality studies with a secondary in psychology. And the first thing I'm going to do is travel with my friends and make up for all of the trips that we had planned for this semester.
All right. Hi, my name is Aaron. I take he, him, his. I'm part of the class of 2023, so I'm a first year this year. I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada, planning to concentrate in applied math and computer science. And the first thing I'm going to do when quarantine's over is definitely grab some In-N-Out.
Awesome. And hello, everyone. My name is Robert. I'm currently a third year at Harvard, and my pronouns are he, him, and his. My hometown is an island called Saipan out in the West Pacific. My concentration is mechanical engineering. And the first thing that I'd like to do when quarantine is over is travel to Asia, because a lot of Asia trips have been canceled and it would be nice to travel again. Awesome. So now that you guys have gotten a glimpse of who our panelists are, we will begin with the most commonly asked questions that you guys submitted through the Google form. Now, the first question is, how have you changed the most in college? How has Harvard influenced that change?
Okay, I'm starting, right?
Yes. Started off, Chloe.
Hello. Okay, so the biggest change since coming to Harvard has been that my entire sort of vision for my future changed. I've always been really involved in the performing arts, but I sort of had it in my mind that eventually I would do something serious. I came in as a prospective concentrator in government, and I still do have government as a secondary. But by being involved in art groups on campus and taking music classes with some really exceptional faculty, talking to advisors, and just getting a glimpse of the resources that Harvard has and like all the examples of success in so many different fields that it has to offer, I started to see examples of how a career in the arts could be realistic. And as a result, I changed my concentration to English and music, as I mentioned before. I changed my plan for my extracurriculars, got really involved in theater and in a cappella, although I still do some other stuff. And it's really made me much more confident in my ability to go out into the world and like pursue whatever I want to pursue without feeling super constrained by what's been deemed realistic, because there are just so many, as I said, like Harvard has so many examples of how to have a successful career in the arts and in government and in economics and science and whatever it is that you want to do.
Beautiful. Switch over to Christina.
Yeah, for me, I think the biggest change that I experienced in college is like I had like a broadened perspective, because being at like Harvard, I felt like I met so many people who are like incredible at what they do. They're really experts at things that you might never have thought like it's possible to be an expert at. So then I came to this realization that like I as an individual like won't ever know everything, can't do everything, don't have to do all these things. So like this was almost like really freeing. So like now I like operate with the kind of like a slower pace than I did in high school, because I have the mindset that like, I am just like going to walk my own path and get good at like the things that I'm really passionate about, while I'm surrounded by all these other people who are doing the exact same thing.
So my thing as well, I think mine's pretty similar to Sienna's. Oh, is that Chloe? Oh my God, I think it was Chloe. I'm sorry, Chloe. But yeah, so my thing probably more along that career path. So kind of in the fall, I found out of this organization called Effective Altruism. And if you haven't heard about Effective Altruism, definitely join. It's kind of the philosophy where you try to make the most impact given our scarce resources, right? So like going into college, I knew I wanted to do some sort of work that like added positive social value, but I wasn't really quite sure what. Kind of Effective Altruism, kind of joining that organization and getting to know the people in it. They definitely helped me understand that I really wanted to work in like evidence-focused like poverty reduction, and specifically how to bring technology into that sphere. Specifically kind of how Harvard has facilitated that. I think one of the best things about Harvard in this regard is kind of there are just a billion opportunities to kind of do whatever you want, right? So also like going in, like I was CS in government, I'm now CS in economics, kind of just like exploring just the government field. I found that I could switch to economics, and also that and they're also like extremely capable and really like put a lot of time and energy into supporting you to make sure you have that personal and professional growth.
Awesome. So thanks for your guys' answers. The next question is, describe Harvard's student culture and academic climate. So we're going to start off with Gabby.
Yeah, so to my surprise, Harvard has a very collaborative environment. I think going in freshman year, I kind of assumed that everybody would be very individualistic and that we'd all kind of be working on our own. But that's totally not the case, or at least in my experience, it hasn't been the case. Whether it's in the form of PSET groups or different study groups, people are very willing to help each other. And I'm not saying like everyone, I'm sure occasionally you'll stumble upon someone who might not be as willing, but for the majority, a lot of people like to work together, and we really have a collaborative environment, which is very helpful, especially since a lot of classes are very demanding. And then also beyond just students, the professors really make themselves available to the students. There are plenty of office hours. Once you learn how to navigate the resources, I think that they're pretty endless at Harvard. So if you ever need help, there's like professors, we have different writing centers, we have peer tutoring, you'll have concentration or major advisors that you can go to for help. So really whatever you need resource-wise, like Harvard can provide it for you. And so I think everybody really wants to see you succeed, and that's kind of the overall theme at this campus, which I think is really great. And you'll come to find out soon.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Gabby said. I think in my experience, like, I kind of expected that in some classes I might feel like a lot of competition, but I think instead there's rather like a mutual acknowledgement that everyone is like really driven to do well and like perform academically. I think also in terms of like student culture, I think this is like a really hard question to answer because for student culture, you surround yourself and you engage in the activities that interest you. So then everyone, no matter what you like to do, no matter your identity, like you'll find your niche on campus because there's just so many places and so many people to like meet and talk to. So that's like student culture, and then academic culture, like everyone is like really collaborative.
I don't want to have to like cold call on somebody, but does any of the panelists want to maybe add their perspective on the question?
I can hop in. I think so. When I was deciding between colleges, I was really concerned that Harvard was gonna have kind of that elitist, competitive, like kind of very much I was previously mentioning, very much like gunning for the top and like willing to like take down everyone aside you edge. And I think that's a stereotype that Harvard has. At least in my experience, I do not feel that. The people that I'm around are definitely extremely supportive and are definitely do not fit that vibe as well. So I think especially it can be hard for incoming pre-frosh who like, you know, really don't have a chance to meet people. Like, I mean, I guess you guys can meet people, but I mean, Zoom interactions are like extremely suboptimal. And it's just like, I think just know that that stereotype doesn't really hold true. And like, it matters. It matters much more so like who you surround yourself with.
Awesome. Thank you for jumping in, Eric. And that is a good point, that the people you're around with really does have an impact on basically your college experience. So now we're moving on to the next question, and this one is kind of spicy. So what do you recommend for choosing your courses for the first semester? Should you focus on just completing the breadth requirements, or you should just dive right deep into your selected concentration?
So I'll start with this one. I personally don't think it's super important to kind of focus on all of the college requirements. Well, I think it's good to kind of know ahead of time what those are and keep them in mind. There's really plenty of time to get them done. We do have general education courses that you have to fulfill and stuff, but it's not anything as extreme as like the Columbia core or something where it's like very rigorous. Like there's definitely time to complete everything that you need to get done. And I think freshman year, is really your opportunity to kind of explore different courses that maybe you hadn't been exposed to in high school, or if you're debating between different majors, this is kind of like your time where you have to explore these different options. So while I do think it's important to kind of keep them in mind, I don't think that it should limit you in any way in the courses that you choose. But I'd say like my main piece of advice is to really balance your schedule. I think freshman year, it's easy to kind of try to overload yourself because we're coming from high school where maybe we took a bunch of AP classes and you think that, okay, like I'm at Harvard now, let's push ourselves to the max. And that I think is just, it's just not a smart idea, because transitioning to college, there's so many different factors, meeting new people, adjusting to life without your family. And so if you really overload yourself academically, you can make your first year a lot more challenging than it needs to be.
Yeah, so kind of to jump in, personally, I'm probably going to stay on the pre-med track. So for me, I know that I guess like prereqs and all that are a really big deal in terms of making sure that I meet all of them on time and make sure that I'm doing them in, whatever order and all that. So that was something that I was really overwhelmed with. But for students who are particularly interested in pre-med or just STEM in general, for the most part, you're going to end up taking all those like breadth requirements. So there are a lot of like big lecture classes that have a couple hundred students that are basically those foundational courses. And that actually goes for a lot of the concentrations. Like CS50 is like one of the biggest classes, and that's like a lot of students take that. There's LPSA or LS1A, which are the foundational life science classes. And a lot of those courses are really very popular for that first semester when you're first coming into college. So that's something that is honestly just a pretty good default, a pretty safe bet for if you have at least a general idea of what you're interested in concentrating in. But I did want to say that if you were still interested in getting a better idea of what you wanted to do in terms of planning out your next few years, I really advise that you reach out to your concentration advisor or even anyone in the department that you're interested in studying, and then set up a meeting with them, because my neuroscience advisor, after just asking me a few general questions about what I was looking for with my my concentration and my academic plans, he was able to come up with a really rough sketch of what my next 4 years could look like, which was so helpful. So if you are really interested in looking more into the concentration requirements, there are definitely resources out there that you could use to help you plan that right away.
Yeah, I would actually say, kind of in contrast, don't focus on either. I think really your freshman fall of like college in general and of Harvard is so special, and you're only going to get it once. And I think you need to really give yourself time to adjust and be like gracious with yourself and your peers, and that like this is, a very like stressful and kind of uncertain time for so many people. And I think you have like 3.5 years to focus on getting your requirements done, to focus on what your concentration is. I think your freshman fall should really be about exploring what you're interested in and taking classes that you never would have gotten the chance to take in high school. So I know for me, I think it's very easy to get roped into the mindset that you have to take these big like lecture courses, you have to take the courses that everyone's talking about. And if you know like right away, like Christine, that you're pre-med and that you need to take a course freshman year, like by all means, go ahead and do that. For me and a few of my friends who didn't quite know what we were studying yet, we were initially roped in by these big lecture courses because the mindset's always like, oh, you should just take them freshman fall. But I think the biggest thing that I did for myself was to kind of step away from what my other peers were doing and kind of focus on purely what made me fascinated, interested. And I would go through the course catalog, just like circle random courses that I loved based on their description, based on their title, and then during shopping week would shop those. And I ended up with a course load that I absolutely loved, taking classes that I never would have taken otherwise, and that really influenced what I wanted to study at Harvard. So I think my biggest piece of advice is to not let necessarily what other people are doing affect you as much, and focus purely on what you're interested in, because your freshman fall, like, you're going to be adjusting, like take it easy, take easy classes that really fascinate you, and you will absolutely love your fall semester academically.
Awesome. And I'd like to pitch in because speaking from the engineering perspective, I hate to burst your bubbles, but you might want to start diving into the concentration requirements, because the reason why is because engineering has the most requirements and it tends to be not so flexible. So I'm just being straightforward and honest that you want to dive into your concentration requirements, not one, so that you can, if you want to continue pursuing engineering, that you'll finish on time. And two, you also have the ability to switch to other concentrations, especially because a lot of the engineering foundation classes passes on to the others like physics or CS or math. So definitely if you find out that you don't like engineering and you want to switch, definitely pursuing the requirements will make sure that you would have an easier transition time. And also it lets you know that is engineering for me, because for some people it is, for some people it's not, but you just want to be prepared for the commitment to it, because 20 courses might not seem so bad, but if you do the math, that's more than half your time at Harvard doing engineering courses. So you want to make sure that you're going to be committed to it.
So I'm CS. I also want to just jump in really quickly. I'm CS, so maybe not exactly the same engineering. I also think, yeah, I think if you're engineering, definitely agree that you should be thinking a little more about your requirements, but also if you're not dead set on engineering, I think you should, maybe you should consider taking some of those classes in the first year, maybe not, like maybe you could deal with more of the concentration requirements later. Like definitely still think about them for the first year, but you also want to make sure you explore, because if you find out you don't like engineering, you don't want to do that when you're 10 courses in, right, in like junior year.
Awesome. So the next question is, what do you dislike most about Harvard, and or how can it improve?
So kind of to start off, I just want to say this isn't necessarily something that's like a dislike, but more just something that I wasn't necessarily aware of. It was more like a reality check for me. So I was kind of taken aback by the inaccessibility of some resources, in the sense that you really won't be able to use them unless you actively push hard to go out and seek them yourself. So like I said, with reaching out to my concentration advisor and all that kind of stuff, I've never really had that kind of support before. So I'm not really used to talking too much to like figures in school or relied teachers and such, where I could ask them for academic advice in this sense, just because it became so real in college. So I was kind of, for the first few months, thrown back by how overwhelmed I was with all these like requirements that were kind of floating around in my head, and not really having any real basis for the steps I should be taking to try to set myself up on a good path for the next few years. And I finally realized, hey, like my advisor's email is on this website, like maybe I can reach out. And he was so welcoming and so open to talk to me and schedule a meeting. And then, like I mentioned, he was able to help me set up a tentative schedule for the next few years of classes I would be interested in taking. But that only happened because I made that effort to kind of, look around, peruse through the neuroscience websites, and I had to really dig for all that information. So I feel like maybe in those first few weeks or something, they could be a little bit more clear about like exact steps that you could take to reach out to this resource or this resource. They kind of throw it at you a little bit. So to go off of that, I don't want to scare anyone away. It is good that Harvard has so many resources like this, but it is just about trying to keep your head on straight and make sure that you're really taking a step back and looking at all the information that you have, and looking at what's going to be the most relevant to you, what your goals are.
I think the biggest thing for me that I wasn't quite aware coming in about Harvard was how homogenous a lot of times the student body can seem, or the kind of interest or like the outward appearance of many students like on campus. I think I was preparing myself to come in with like an incredibly diverse class in terms of interests and backgrounds, and also be very supported in whatever I wanted to do. And I found that even though like while students come from like all different scenarios and backgrounds and have all different interests, there was definitely certain interests and backgrounds that were privileged a bit more. And I think my biggest thing that I would want to change would be to make Harvard a bit more open-minded to like embracing students that come from these like others, I would say. Because there definitely is, I would say, like, I'm not like gonna gloss over the truth, there definitely is like a Harvard type. I think that's prevalent on campus, and whether it's liking economics or wanting to go into investment banking or consulting, there definitely is a drive towards certain concentration, certain career paths, and it can be very hard as someone who isn't interested in that, or like who wants to participate in the arts or something different, STEM, that sort of thing, to kind of fall outside of that norm, I think. And then I also think there's definitely a culture sometimes of overwork and being busy for the sake of being busy, which I think is not very productive. And I think you have to actively fight against that, of like, you'll find students being like, hey, like, oh, I was in Lamont until 5 a.m. like last night, which is like our almost 24/7 library that is pretty common for undergrads to be in at all hours of the night. And there's definitely a glorification, I would say, sometimes of this overwork and of being kind of a slave to your academics and to your activities, when I think there really doesn't need to be. And so I think the biggest thing for me was trying actively to not participate in that and follow my own interests and not be influenced by my peers necessarily, which is very difficult to do. I think especially when you're coming into college and like me, you have like no idea what you want to do. So you can definitely be kind of swayed in the wrong direction because you think that because that's someone else's path, that must be yours. So my biggest piece of advice in kind of going against that, and like, it's not Harvard specific too, I feel like every college will have a type of student that they turn out. There's definitely stereotypes, and while they don't always hold true, they are stereotypes sometimes for a reason. My biggest piece of advice is exploring what you're interested in and kind of sticking to that as best as you can. And surrounding yourself with friends and with mentors and with professors that will foster that growth personally, academically, extracurricularly, in ways that will make you feel supported in what you're interested in.
Yeah, so,
Oh, sorry. I can jump into the panelists.
Go ahead. Yeah. I'll just go, I'll jump in after you. Go for it.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna answer the question, but also I just really quickly wanted to say, to the point about homogeneity, while there definitely is a tendency towards certain careers and concentrations, I think in my experience, I view things a little bit differently in that because the student body is pretty large, I think we have 6,500 undergrad or something like that, there are niches for pretty much everything, and definitely there is a large tendency towards, as Sienna mentioned, like economics and consulting and that type of thing, but it's not everybody. And if you're in one of the smaller offshoots of student life, you have a lot more access to the experts in your field, and really close communities can form out of that. So while there is a tendency in some directions, I'm not sure I would call it homogenous. That's just my experience. But the thing I was going to say about what I wish were different about Harvard, because there's so much prestige associated with it, I think sometimes the administration can feel a little bit inaccessible. This is coming from somewhat of a biased perspective. I'm an organizer with Fossil Fuel Divest Harvard, and the administration is not the most cooperative with our campaign. But even as we read these things in the news about, I don't know if you have all seen, but Harvard recently announced a plan to go carbon neutral by 2050, which is like a very long timeline. And also there was a graduate workers strike in the fall around labor practices for graduate students. But despite the shortcomings of the administration and how often I am frustrated with them, all sort of the lower levels of administration, so the faculty deans and the house deans, and the department chairs and all those people, I've found to be incredibly accessible and kind and understanding, even if like the top people are a little bit out of reach.
Yeah, so I wanted to jump in real quick. I definitely agree with Christine's point she was making earlier about the fact that you really do have to take initiative at Harvard. There are like so many resources, but they're not going to be like spoon fed to you. Obviously, you definitely have to, reach out to professors and mentors and deans in order to really get access to the full breadth of resources that are available. And I personally think one thing that probably won't be echoed, but I wanted to just point it out. I didn't really like the food that much. And freshman year, we all eat in one dining hall called Annenberg. It's really cool because you get to see people all the time, all other freshmen. Food's not that good though. Personally, I think the upperclassmen houses, it does get better. But yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to point out.
It's not that bad. He's being dramatic.
We can take this to the parking lot later. But moving on. So my last question for our panelists is, what has been your most memorable college experience?
Okay, so for me, there are many, but I'd have to say that the summer after my freshman year, I got to do research abroad in Japan, and it was through a Harvard program. There was about 5 of us who worked in the same research lab, and it was amazing. We got to take a course in immunology, and then we worked full-time in the lab, and it was fully funded by Harvard, which is really great. And there are a lot of other programs that Harvard offers to undergrads to do different things like this, doing research abroad or doing many different internships. And I would say take advantage of how the opportunity to travel that Harvard gives. I know right now, like, that's not the case, but when we go back, I'm sure, and when things get better, it'll open up. And I really think that I'm glad that I did that, because now I have other friends who didn't kind of take advantage of that opportunity. And now later on, they are stuck thesising, so they have to stay on campus, and they kind of missed out on this travel opportunity. So I would say take advantage of that.
Yeah, I think for me, my favorite experience was this thing called the Froshicle. So every year, there's a musical completely written, produced, directed, acted in, everything by only first years. It's a tradition going back, I think, like 25 years. And not only did it change my life in terms of changing my concentration and my career path, as I mentioned earlier, but it also gave me all of my friends, all of my blockmates, so people that I live with now, are people that I met on that project. On this Saturday is going to be the 1-year anniversary of opening night, and we're going to have a massive Zoom call with all like 60 people who worked on the show to watch the full recording. So I think opportunities like that are building community within the freshman class, since it is kind of large, are a really great thing to be aware of and take advantage of.
For me, I think the best memory at Harvard or just best thing about Harvard in general, I think would be like the residential experience and roommates, and like living with roommates for the first time kind of. I think Harvard does an incredible job of pairing people up with roommates that are going to challenge them, but that are also similar enough to them where you can get along. And I've made some of my closest friendships with my roommates, whether that's, blocking or freshman year roommates, still in contact with all of them, still friends with them, FaceTime them the other day. My sophomore year roommate and I are like living together for the next 2 years. And I think that's such an important piece of college, whether it's at Harvard or not, is, the people that you live with, the people that you surround yourself with. And so I think the ability to participate in house life and community and having roommates or suite mates that you're able to go to for just about anything and really create such a home away from home is my favorite thing.
Great. So now thanks so much for those answers. Our next question.
I'm sorry. I didn't realize the question went by so fast.
Aaron, this is mine. So now our question is, so imposter syndrome was a concept that many of us had during our first years. So how about Chloe? Could you start us off?
Thanks, Eric. So yeah, I was definitely worried about imposter syndrome coming into Harvard. I went to a specialized high school in New York City, so it was already a topic that had been discussed a lot there. And it can be really difficult and intimidating to be surrounded by a lot of other successful people. But I think the thing that I've found over time that's made it much better, and like it's not even a thing that I think about so much anymore, is that Harvard's admissions department is good. Like there are so many amazing people at Harvard, and everybody who's there has accomplished something really unique and special, and all different. So you can be amazingly successful at one thing, and then your roommate can be amazingly successful at something completely different, and it's just different tracks of life. And so it becomes less of a competitive atmosphere and more basking in the glory of what everyone else has achieved. And like I've learned so much from my friends. And as people were saying before with the question about the academic culture, there's really not an atmosphere of one-upsmanship at all. It's about supporting each other and finding ways that we can individually thrive and show our skills and strengths.
Yeah, and then I can jump in here. Imposter syndrome definitely is a thing. Specifically, I think like everybody, like I mean, what Chloe mentioned, like everybody's doing incredible things. Like for example, my friend just started a research assistantship at the World Bank, and that's just about the coolest thing ever, right? And so it's kind of like it's easy to kind of be like, oh my god, this person's doing that, this person's doing that. Like I wish I was doing that, you know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like you also kind of have to understand that it's like that like you can't really just compare yourselves on such like a flat basis, I guess, if that makes any sense. It's kind of like it's not just like, oh yeah, this person does that, like oh my god, I wish I could be them, right? It's more so like everybody has kind of like their own strengths and their own like and there's own aspects, and you have to kind of it's kind of like a personal journey as well. You kind of have to realize in yourself that like these flat comparisons really like don't draw much as to like what's truly going on. And then because I totally misinterpreted this question at first, I also just wanted to add, I think another tough thing can kind of be like making friends. In the beginning, I low-key didn't have many friends, and I felt like I wasn't very close to the people on campus, but I think that's just part of like growing pains.
Yeah, so a little bit beyond the imposter syndrome, because I'm just gonna say it, everyone feels it at Harvard, and they're lying if they say that they don't. But to go a little bit more into just like the general experience coming in, I felt a lot of uncertainty just because with me personally, I didn't know any people at Harvard coming in. There weren't any high school alumni that I could talk to. I didn't really know anyone who went to Harvard at all. Me and another guy in our year, the class of 2023, were the first ones from my high school to come to Harvard in a really, really long time. So we were kind of feeling out all of these new experiences for ourselves, and it was definitely overwhelming in that sense. But I was immediately reassured by the fact that literally every single person I had met who was an upperclassman or professor or advisor or proctor, everyone was so willing to listen to me and help me with anything that I needed. Everyone was so kind and welcoming, and it really made me feel like I wasn't missing out on anything at all. All those uncertainties and those insecurities about being like the first or whatever, not really having that support system coming in, all those uncertainties went away immediately just because of how welcoming everyone was. So that was definitely something that, although it was very real for me and very valid for me, they were immediately reassured when I came in.
All right, so that's it for all our prepared questions. We know we weren't able to answer all of the questions you guys submitted, but these were the most requested ones. I'm sure you guys all have more questions, so now we're going to open it up to you guys. So if you have a question, feel free to use the raise hand feature in Zoom or just drop it in the group chat. Also, if you don't want to ask your question in the group chat or using raise hand, just go ahead and PM either me or Robert, and we can anonymize the question for you. Yeah. So you can see the questions are really rolling in. So maybe we can do some of these rapid fire ones. Yeah.
I agree.
Oh,
Oh, okay. So let's.
awesome.
Okay, so first one. Should we ask this one, Aaron?
Yeah. Or we have some questions in the chat. We can just go ahead. So
Yeah, there's one in the chat, and
yeah, we can definitely just go for those. So Denise asks, what are y'all's best time management techniques for Harvard? Anyone wants to just go ahead and jump in?
An agenda is great. People make fun of me for my agenda. I don't know why. Like, I think it looks great. I don't know why people make fun of me. But regardless, agendas are huge. Mine is actually like physically pretty large, but like generally like it's a good idea to have an agenda just to kind of stay organized. Thank you, Christine.
I would say my biggest tip is something called time blocking, which I didn't know about until college, but it's basically where you do only one activity for a certain amount of time, and then you just say like you have like an hour of uninterrupted time. You're going to say, okay, for 30 minutes I'm going to do this activity and I'm not going to do anything else, and then I'm going to split up my time for the remaining 30 minutes and do 15 minutes of answering emails and then 15 minutes of working on this response post. And what that helps do is like kind of sync your mind, or that's not the right word, but like it basically helps you kind of focus on one thing only at a time, so that your mind doesn't have like, I kind of liken it to like a computer with all these different like tabs open. You literally just have like one tab open and you're working on that exact task at a time, rather than like, which I'm so guilty of, like having my phone open and responding to my friend's Snapchat and then answering an email from my professor and then working on my paper and then also being worried about this other thing and online shopping and like all of this stuff that you manage to do at the same time. So instead, just like blocking out your time and saying, I'm going to focus on emails for like 30 minutes at this time of the day and then not check it at all for the rest of the day and instead focus on my other things. It's very hard to do, but it will increase your productivity drastically.
awesome. So for this, to make sure that we can get to as much questions as possible, we're gonna just make sure one panelist answers each one question. So there's one question that was asked in the chat room, and it's, what is the dating life like at Harvard? Should I cold call, or this is?
I'll go for it.
I'll back you up just in case.
All right. Just don't listen to my dating advice, guys. Yeah. Sorry, Robert. That was really hurtful.
No, dude, you're good.
There is a hookup culture at Harvard. I think that's just like kind of pretty popular. I don't know if it's like solely a Harvard thing. I think it's like generally pretty popular as well. So hookup culture definitely exists. I think you can definitely get away with that. I'm dating somebody, but maybe that's anecdotal example. Yeah, flex. No, but like, yeah, I mean, I feel like you can get away from that. Like, it kind of depends on, again, like what I mentioned before, like who you surround yourself with, right, and who you get involved with. I feel like that wasn't substantive. So Robert, feel free to jump in with your wisdom, man.
Oh, all I'm gonna say is just that in general, people are really busy. So I'll just leave it at that. Can't testify for myself, but people are generally really busy. So
I think there are more hookups than relationships just because of how busy people are. But I mean,
but there are still lots of great and successful relationships.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That's true.
But I think the ratio might be a little bit skewed. So the next question in the chat was, I've heard there is great inflation, and I was wondering if this is true as well for STEM majors such as math.
I don't mind answering this one since I'm a math concentrator, but I think that I feel like this is true. There are definitely math classes that will destroy you, and you can put in every ounce of sweat, blood, and tears into it, and you still might not get like the grade you want. But I think generally, like Harvard has this like attitude about grading, is that it's like about merit rather than separating people. So I think, like, even if it's not like the world's most perfect grade, generally people like who put in the effort, because Harvard students do like pour a lot into their core courses, like people who put in the effort usually, I would say, don't get lower than a B minus. But there are exceptions, and then there's like a whole bunch of like different classes and things like this. But in my experience, math classes, especially as you get higher up, they literally don't care about your grades as much. So if you do the work, like the expectation is that like you will perform well in the class.
Awesome. So moving on to the next question we have, and question about the dorms. How much liberty do you guys have decorating?
I can talk a little bit on this one just because I loved decorating my dorm. They're honestly really, really lenient with it. There aren't too many regulations as far as I can tell. For the most part, people are free to bring in like whatever they want. You can bring in like string lights, hanging decorations, like you're allowed to put stuff on the walls, you're allowed to really do whatever to make it your own space. You just can't, logically you can't like destroy it, you can't like tear down the walls or like chip off the paint or anything like that. You want to leave it, as close to the way as you found it when you first moved in. That's just like the general rule of thumb. But so long as you can like cleanly take everything apart, you're pretty much free to do whatever. So that's given a lot of people I know freedom to kind of, adjust the space, make it their own. And it definitely makes the transition a lot more comfortable for sure when you're coming into college, just because you have that opportunity to make some, little corner on campus really your own. So I honestly didn't have problems with it.
So there's like a couple questions about applications. Do you guys want to like kind of lump those into maybe one, and someone could just speak about that? Or do you think we should address these like?
Let's address the college ones first.
Yeah, I think we're gonna address the college ones first. So Catherine asks, "Hi, just wondering a bit what social life is like at Harvard. I obviously love school and chose Harvard because of the academics, but I do like to go out and have fun with friends. Just wondering about what Harvard kids do for fun."
So to go back to the recurrent.
Okay, continue.
Sorry. To go back to the recurrent theme that Eric keeps bringing up, it really just depends on who you hang out with. And I think that there are a bunch of different social scenes that can work the way that you want them to. So like personally, me and my friends, we do tend to go out every weekend, but also we do a lot of other random things. Like we went to the duck boat sailing thing in Boston, like go see movies. We're also right by the rivers, like you can take walks or bike rides or runs along the river. Some people go out like many times a week. Some people never go out at all. And because we are Cambridge in and of itself is a city of 100,000 people. So there's a lot going on just there. And then we're 15 minutes from Boston. So people do all sorts of different things. And you can find other people who want to do what you want to do.
Awesome. So another question that we have is, anyone take Hum 10 and enjoy it? How does this class compare to Expos 20?
Did anybody else take it? Because I don't want to answer two in a row if somebody else did. But okay, I'll just be quick. So I took Hum 10. I'm a Hum 10 mentor now, so I I'm paired with the first year who's in the course right now to help them through it. It's a lot, but I think the reason to take it is that you get unique access to the top professors in the humanities at Harvard your first semester right off the bat. So like I had a 12-person section every week with Stephen Greenblatt, who's like the world's leading scholar on Shakespeare. Pretty crazy. And like now I know him pretty well. Also, if the idea of reading a book every week scares you, I probably shouldn't say this in my like capacity as a mentor, but to be honest, you really don't have to like read all of every book, and pretty much nobody does, and you'll be fine. So don't stress about it. It's a lot, but it's scarier, or it's less scary than it seems. And I think I would encourage you, if you're considering it, to take it over Expos just purely because of the access to professors.
Awesome. So another question from Hannah was, could you speak more on activist culture at Harvard?
Someone else, please go.
I think go ahead and go for it. Go ahead and answer.
Okay. This will be the last thing I say because I don't want to talk the whole time. But so as I mentioned, I'm involved in Divest, fossil fuel divest. There's a lot of activism going on campus. There's the prison divestment movement. There's SLAM, which is like labor activism, really for any topic that you're interested in. And there's also the thing that I've been most surprised and fortified by is that there's a large alumni network associated with each of those activist organizations. So that's good both for like finding opportunities at not-for-profits and stuff for over your summers and after you graduate, and also just having the institutional knowledge of people who've been in these fights for decades. I was talking last week to somebody who was in fossil fuel divest in the 60s. So it's really cool to have access to people with that much knowledge. And there's definitely a large activist culture.
Yeah, so just adding on just really quickly to that, even if, you are, maybe you're overwhelmed with other things, other extracurriculars, commitments, that's definitely, understandable for students on campus. It's definitely really easy to be involved in individual activist events. They're always being held all over campus, and it's always really easy to get involved. They're never going to say no. So for example, there are going to be lots of mailing lists where students who are a part of these amazing activist groups will send out, notes ahead of time, like, hey, if you're interested, join us at this location at this time to, start a conversation about this. And it's always really easy if you want to just hop in. If you have time, you definitely can. So in general, it's I feel like a very open culture in terms of being able to join in on these different movements that are always going on around campus. So lots of different ways to get involved for sure.
Awesome. All right, so we're going to move on to another question, but I just like to make a disclaimer. So we won't be answering any questions regarding the coronavirus and stuff because we are not the administration, and we don't want to influence any of your decisions because we're not the official spokespeople for the administration, just to make that clear. All right, so moving on to another question about weather. So how was the transition to colder weather from those of you who's not used to the East Coast weather, aka those at the West Coast or sunny weathers or tropical islands? Anyone want to jump in?
I'm from Texas. It's bad. I'm always cold. It's really bad when you're going to there's a local taqueria and you're walking there at 3 in the morning. It's cold, but it's okay. It's okay. It's gonna be cold. Get a thick jacket.
I second that. It's 100 degrees in Vegas, and it was 8 degrees in Boston sometimes, or Cambridge, sorry. And it snows a lot. Yeah, it's gloomy.
It makes you a tougher person.
I don't agree.
I have a hot take. I'm from California, and I actually really liked the cold. To survive, I think the key is you have to get a proper jacket. You have to have the boots. LL Bean boots are really helpful, and good socks. I think with those 2 things, you'll be fine, and maybe a beanie. But overall, the snow days are really fun. At least I'm not used to seeing that here, so it was really awesome.
Yeah, the seasons are all really beautiful, honestly. The fall and the spring are really, really nice. So the next question is from Kieran. Is Harvard socially competitive, or are events/communities generally inclusive and welcoming?
I can take a jump on this. So there are definitely some communities that are inclusive or not so that are inclusive. So for instance, I'm pretty sure a lot of you heard about final clubs. So those, I'm not part of any final clubs. I don't know how the process works, but in general, that's the extreme side of the inclusivity. But then in others, a lot of clubs tend to be pretty open, especially those that are relatively new. And as one of our panelists, as I believe Chloe mentioned, that the more niche the club is, the tend to more open to be because people just really want to share about what their unique quirks and passions are about. So people are more than welcome. People are really welcoming to bring people into their clubs and stuff. All right. So now another interesting question so why did you guys choose Harvard besides the fact that it was Harvard?
I can answer this one. I think the big thing for me was that Harvard has really great research labs. And looking at different schools, I guess it was really important for me to have different research opportunities available. And Harvard has so many, not just even on campus, but off, like beyond. You can go to the Broad, you can go to MIT, you can do research at the med school. So there are really so many opportunities if you're interested in anything lab related.
All right, so next question is, I've heard that a lot of the social interactions at Harvard are based on networking and gaining connections. Is this true?
Wait, can you just repeat the question one more time?
Yeah, so I've heard that a lot of social interactions at Harvard are based on networking and gaining connections. Is this true?
I can talk about this a little bit. Yeah, I was gonna say, for the most part, no, unless it's those like designated events where it's like, you know, fairs or specific events where you're going to be meeting, you know, professionals in certain fields or maybe labs if you're in STEM. Like, unless it's those designated events, for the most part, I mean, we're like normal young adults. We like get to know each other the way that you would get to know anyone who you want to be friends with. So it's very much, from what I can tell, separated to those designated events that are specifically for like networking and such.
Awesome. All right, so that will be the last question because at this moment we are out of time. And we also have a lot of our panelists who will have some time to stay a little bit after. So if you have any more specific questions, feel free to stay. But first of all, we just want to thank the panelists for their time to be here, and as well as for you all for participating. Hopefully you found this to be extremely helpful, informative, and enjoyable as a way to learn more about the Harvard community. We also want to take this opportunity to invite you all to help expand CollegeSide Chats. This was very much a word of mouth project, and we really need and we want as much help as we can get. Our goal is to host several chats across various universities, and we need help with marketing and outreach, which can be as simple as just helping post our next chat in another college's Facebook page or sharing our IG posts on your stories. Now, with all that said, thank you again for all joining us. Thank you, our panelists, for volunteering your time, and congratulations to you all for your acceptances, and we hope that you and your loved ones will stay safe and healthy. Welcome to Harvard.
Sweet. So I think we'll just continue with the questions, though, right? Because I think a lot of panelists do have some free time, spare time that they can answer these with. So the next question was, I think this is the next one. Considering we're not sure how our freshman year will start, what was your favorite part of freshman fall that you can still experience virtually if need be? I mean, to be honest, I don't know. I'm honestly not sure what really will be available freshman fall, or Harvard will offer to freshmen on a virtual level. So I don't think we're in a great position to answer that question. If anyone wants to add something,
I can.
though.
I think one big thing that will still be around no matter what is getting involved in like clubs and stuff. I found that to be one of the best parts, just like finding about so many organizations. Also, there's much lower like barriers to going to events because now they're on like all virtual. Like before, like I wouldn't go to events if I had to walk more than like 5 minutes, but now like I can like you can go to like literally every event because it's just pressing a button on your computer.
Sure, a lot of clubs are still holding, probably still holding like info sessions. I think around right now too, like with virtual Visitas. So definitely check those out.
Shout out Effective Altruism Virtual Visitas this Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern. It will be, it's in the Facebook group. So if you guys want to come out and learn about how to do the most good, like come through, like it'll be a good time.
Shameless plug, but a great plug. Go for Effective Altruism. All right, so another question that was asked is, how is finding internships or campus jobs like during the semester?
Yeah, I can go ahead and answer this one. I've had an on-campus job for like all of the semesters that I've been at Harvard, so it's actually really easy to find on-campus jobs, and it's very common. More students than not, I would say, have them. And at the beginning of the school year, usually in the fall semester, there'll be like a big on-campus job fair. So that's actually where I found my job. So there's like tons of different jobs, whether it's working with grad students or at the graduate schools with like researchers and professors as an assistant, shelving books in one of the libraries, working as a tutor for different students, working like I did at a desk actually in our campus center. So there's tons and tons of jobs that you can have and like that will require different skills, whether you want it to be something that's resume booster or just something that will allow you to do homework basically, and get paid for that. So that's the job I opted for because I wanted kind of the easier route. Which was nice because I was able to just like sit at a desk at our campus center, and students would like come up and ask me questions about like where the bathroom was or if there was a printer or that sort of thing. And I was able to do homework simultaneously. So if you ask around, you'll find that there are actually a lot of jobs like that, and that people who want to give students jobs recognize that they also are very busy and have a lot of homework. So you'll find that a lot of times these jobs can be ones that you can multitask on. I know my friends who shelf books often will listen to podcasts, will listen to their readings that they have to do like on audiobook. So you can find that there's really ways that you can multitask with your time. And it's really common to have an on-campus job. I would definitely ask around for what you think, ask around other students, I think, for what they think the best job is. So you aren't stuck with one that might be a bit too much of a time commitment or might not be as valuable.
All right, so another question we had was, do you feel like most Harvard students pursue their future careers more for the sake of earning the most money or for the following their dreams/genuine interests? I guess I can speak to this like really quick. I think Harvard's really unique because it's a very, like, people here are extremely passionate about whatever they're pursuing. I mean, obviously there are going to be exceptions. Like I would say it's a very small handful of the student body. I think upwards of like 95-96% of students are definitely in career paths that they're really passionate about. So I definitely don't think students are in it for the money, I would say.
All right, so we have another question here. So what is the LGBTQ plus environment at Harvard as far as acceptance with identity, bathrooms, etc.?
I can take this question. In terms of the environment, I think that it depends on where you come from, but for me, like getting to college, as with like a lot of different college campuses across the United States, there is usually a BJLQT environment, and then they also have, Harvard has the QOFfice, the BJLQT office on the yard, which does events and like handles like all of the things like related, and they also have like grants, and then you can also intern for that office. So there's that. On top of that, there's like much greater awareness of like gender and sexuality on a college campus, I think, in general. In terms of like, say I live in the dorm, and then like the bathrooms in my hallway are all gender neutral. So like I think there's a lot more understanding, a lot more accommodations for like every gender, sexuality, identity. So.
Sweet. So the next question, sorry, let me pull the chat, is how easy is it to start a club or a nonprofit chapter at Harvard?
I could talk about the club. So in terms of the club, it takes about a year to form. So initially it starts out as usual, just a group of people with similar interests doing something. And I'm speaking from the frame of the Harvard Aeronautics, which me and a group of friends just started. Now, the process to officially getting recognized is challenging because one is you can't pub your club in like big events like Visitas or the Club Fair Activities Day because your club's not officially recognized. And two, if you're trying to make swag, especially with the Harvard name, it's really tricky. Like, trust me, Harvard is very peculiar about how you use the Harvard name. So there's a lot of boundaries to go over that. But it takes about a year in general to go from your club to go from just a group of friends to a full-fledged recognized organization. All right. Now, there was another question here. Can anyone speak about RSOs and how easy it is to join one? Oh,
I can say something about this. So I'm in the Aleph, which used to be AE Pi, which was a fraternity. And then, as many of you probably know, Harvard instituted sanctions against single gender organizations. So they deaffiliated, and now it's a gender neutral organization. The Aleph is a little bit outside of some of the other RSOs. But from what I've heard across the board, I think it is less stressful than sort of comparable rush and pledge processes for frats and sororities at other institutions. And I think at least most of the people that I know who have been interested in joining an RSO, if they've like kept an open mind and sort of talked to enough of them, have found a place that fit really well with them and been accepted into one. But also, even if you don't get into an RSO, all of the clubs have such a strong social culture, in my experience, that you can have a really great social experience in a club that is not officially a social organization.
So the next question was, how difficult is it to applying for and completing a concurrent master's program, especially for CS? I don't know if anyone is doing this.
I can speak about the policies, but I myself am not doing it, if you don't mind me.
Yeah, go for it.
So as of right now, they changed the policies where as long as you take, basically, as long as you can take the graduate level classes within the 4 years you're at Harvard. So for instance, 3 years you're going to be spending finishing your undergraduate requirements. The fourth year you'd ideally be starting on your master's requirements. Now, I'd just like to point you guys to check out the page at Harvard's official page. But basically the goal is, as long as you can finish your undergraduate requirements and those graduate requirements within your 4 years at Harvard, you should be able to pursue it. It's much more lax than it was before. All right. Now, another question we have here is, at Harvard, do you ever feel rushed to choose a career goal or plan? And is there a pre-professional career-oriented atmosphere?
I could speak about this a little bit.
Go ahead, Christine.
In my opinion, I feel like a lot of that pressure, in a sense, comes from yourself, like your mindset on it, because I know that everyone is, of course, very overachieving and very passionate and persistent with their goals. But of course, everyone does have their uncertainties too. And so I feel like unless you really let other people's comments kind of get to you, if you make an active effort to not let other people's paths or anything define you, kind of like what Eric was talking about a little while ago. It's so easy to feel like that, quote unquote, imposter syndrome of, oh my gosh, like they already have their entire life planned out. They know where they want to go after graduating in 4 years, and they know what they want to do. There can definitely be a bit of pressure with that, but you just really have to keep in mind that your journey is for you. You are coming to Harvard for your own education and for your own growth and what you want to do in the future. You are investing in your own future. So if you just trust that, you're allowed to take this process as slowly or as quickly as you want, take it at your own pace, that's really the only thing that matters. So long story short, it is definitely easy to feel that pressure, but just you have to make an active effort to not let it get to you and make sure that you're just focused on your own goals.
Did we answer this question about like meeting people from other colleges? Oh, I assume not then. So I know Boston's a big college city. Do you guys meet people from the other colleges? Do you go to MIT parties? Yeah, I think that's, yeah, we do. MIT's brats are pretty dope. Okay, so is that the last question or is it?
Wait, could I just add on a little really quickly to that one question?
Yeah,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
for sure.
Yeah, so in terms of meeting students at other universities and such, there are lots of different ways, I feel like. Maybe not the easiest, but for me, like, for example, I have friends at other Boston colleges just because there's so many universities in the Boston area. It's actually insane. So there are ways to make connections. A lot of times people do go to, you know, parties and gatherings at other universities. So I've met people from like Boston University, Boston College, MIT at parties, and it's always really cool to be able to meet those people that you wouldn't have had the chance to otherwise. And also from my experience, organizations like ethnic organizations like to host like Boston area, you know, kickbacks and stuff like that. So it really does pay off to, you know, get involved in different clubs that could be hosting those kinds of things, because those are other opportunities that you could meet students that you wouldn't otherwise.
Can I just say a really quick anecdote on this question? So I know we're trying to keep it to short answers, but my a cappella group competes in something called the ICCAs, and at our quarterfinal, we were just hanging out in our rehearsal room, and one of the other groups randomly came in and asked to like make a bunch of TikToks with us. So they're just organic things like that too, completely random, and everybody's really friendly. So if you were involved in like anything, you will meet people.
Awesome. All right. So we're gonna close this off for our official time, since some of our panelists, because we're all in different time zones. So once again, thank you for those who stayed back, and I hope that we answered your questions to the best of our abilities. And thank you again very much for our panelists for sticking for the extra time and be willing to just answer all these different questions, because it's really hard to answer all of them concisely, but thank you for giving your time. So once again, this was Harvard CollegeSide Chats. We hope you enjoyed your time. Please share about us, and we hope that you enjoy your days and stay safe.
Okay, I don't know if you haven't left yet. Like, if you have any questions, I think you just shoot them. Like,
Probably not even here.
you 1, 2, 3, 4. If you 4 have any questions, like, just go for it. All right, 3.
Eric, I have a question. How long did part 2 of Ec 50 take?
Bro, Loki took a minute. Like go
A
to
minute?
tomorrow.
Word.
Oh, we got a question.
Oh, I can take it. I was considering doing, but if anybody else is doing Gov, they can.
I'm doing it as a secondary.
Yeah, I was considering doing a secondary, but you're also older than me, so you should take it.
Oh, you can add on. But we don't have a poli-sci department. We have a government department and a social studies department. So government is going to be more about like how government actually works, and social studies combines elements of poli-sci and philosophy and some sociology elements, and it's sort of an interdisciplinary thing. And so a lot of people who would be traditionally poli-sci people end up in social studies, although government is big too. I think social studies has the reputation of being a little bit more rigorous, but independent from all that, we're connected to the Harvard Kennedy School, which is a graduate school for like public policy and stuff, which is just an incredible resource. Like we have 6 fellows that come every semester who have been some of the most incredible people, and you can have really close like one-on-one interactions with them. So one that I was really excited for last year was Brittany Packnett, who's worked at like Teacher America and the ACLU, and we also, didn't we have Sean Spicer or something the year before I was here? It's like we get all sorts of people. And so access to resources through the Kennedy School and then also through the Institute of Politics, which is the undergraduate sort of like extracurricular division within the Kennedy School, are really exceptional. So I also write for the Harvard Political Review, which is an undergraduate journal for political analysis. And I've gotten to talk to so many incredible people. Like I wrote an article about the Iowa caucuses this year, and I was emailing back and forth with the head of the Iowa Democratic Party. We've had pieces get read into the congressional record and like all sorts of ridiculous stuff. So even more than curricularly, extracurricularly, there are a lot of political science opportunities. Eric, you want to go?
You covered everything. Poli-sci is a good time, you know. There are multiple tracks too. Like if you're really interested in data science or tech science, like you could go along that too. But no, that was solid. And if anybody has any other questions, you can just like shoot them. I think we might be good then.
There's no reason to not apply early. Like it's not binding. So unless there's somewhere else you're like pretty sure you want to go more, it's easier to get in early. So you might as well.
Second.
I mean, that said, if it's the early deadline, you're like, oh, I really have to run and like fill out this application really, really fast. It just takes the extra time. Just make sure your application is like 100% before you submit it.
Yeah, there's really no like application advantage from doing either. It's really just depends. Like if you want to take that extra, like what Christina mentioned, if you want to take that extra like month to really like hone in your application, I by all means go for it. If you're done by then and you just want to like get it out of the way, then just get it out of the way. It's ultimately doesn't really have much of an impact. Of you guys, I'm pretty sure you guys can just like unmute yourselves if you guys want to ask questions. Could just be like, you know, just have a good time.
I gotta go, y'all. But
Peace.
Here's Chloe.
Farewell. Other people who are still in the chat, choose Harvard. It's great. Bye.
I don't, unless anyone else has any last questions, I think we can, oh, sorry.
Transfer service.
Transfer services, do you mean transferring in? If you could be a bit more clear with your question. Assuming by transfer services like transferring into Harvard, there definitely is a process. Now I just don't know exactly the process because I believe that none of us here have our transfers to Harvard. Are there any dean's programs or university programs that are mandatory? So I've met a couple of transfer students, and there are certain parts of Harvard that are required. So for instance, you have to take this class called XPOS. You have to take it. You also have to take a 1 year of a foreign language or place out. So these are some of the university's strict requirements that unless you fulfill it in your previous school or something like that, you'd still have to fulfill it at Harvard. But definitely check out the transfer policies in the school's website.
Sophomore fall. I think we can just end it here. If anybody has any questions that are like specific to like the culture or something, I think you can just like find us on like Facebook or something. Robert, what do you think?
they're going to send out our emails after this to I believe the people who participated. So through that, you can find our emails.
All right, I have to go, but see you
All
guys.
right. Thank you everyone for your time and stay safe.
You know, I can hit the regrets. Oh, he's not, or he or she is not here. Okay, I'm just gonna end it, you guys. As host, I had that sort of power. All right, see you guys. Bye.